Name the one time when it's normal to spend thousands of pounds on an item that you'll not wear for more than a handful of hours.
Of course, we're talking about wedding dresses. And this week, we speak to Annelise, founder of The Fall Bride, who's on a mission to serve the modern bride.
We dive into the key things to think about if you're a bride on a budget, the rise of pre-loved bridal outfits, and how The Fall Bride is closing the loop on consumption, one wedding dress at a time. So, weddings can be, for a lot of people, one of the most, if not the most expensive day of their lives. And given that we're in a cost of living crisis at the moment, I'd love to know if you've seen any shifts or any changes already in what people are looking for or how much people are willing to spend when it comes to their big day, but particularly their wedding dress.
Yeah, so coming out of the pandemic, we really had no idea what kind of market we were coming out into. I mean, we knew there were going to be a lot of weddings, but everything had changed completely.
Yeah.
Like, people had to split out into multiple events. We didn't know what budgets were going to look like. And then when the cost of living crisis hit as well, it was just like, cool. Now we have like a double whammy of like having no idea how we're going to navigate this and what customers are looking for. We haven't actually seen too much difference in people's budgets because we've always had customers that have quite a wide range of budgets. You know, we carry like kind of more affordable ready to wear all the way up to thousands of pounds made to order gowns. So it's always varied quite a lot. But I think the most interesting thing I've seen is that people are actually buying more.
Oh,
They're
really?
having more than one wedding dress. They are fully in this mindset of like, I've survived a pandemic. I haven't been able to celebrate with my friends and my family for years, and I deserve it, basically. And I think the wedding dress is probably one of the very few elements that you can speak to a bride about, maybe not the whole couple. And that will be like the one area that they don't want to cut costs, because there's so many cost variables that go into a wedding. And like, you can reduce the guest list and feed less people, and that will remove like thousands of pounds. So they're actually like, everyone's going for a party dress now. They all want like a fun mini. They want to have like the full length for the day and then change into something fun for the evening. Like,
What about shoes? Because I've seen a few brides in these kind of wedge trainer things going on.
shoes? I mean, we do have a lot of brides wear trainers for the evening, but I don't know. I haven't seen any wedge trainers.
Yeah.
It's like a little 90s noughties trend.
I've seen little, it's like with some Swarovski crystals on them. I've seen a few of those, yeah.
It's so interesting though that you say that it's the one area that people don't want to cut, because I got married in 2021 and actually the one area I wish I'd spent less was actually the dress, with hindsight. And that's very much looking back now at the day and the occasion, and I wouldn't cut the costs on anything else that we decided to do.
That's so interesting.
Other than the dress.
I do think you definitely, it doesn't matter how like non-traditional you are, you definitely drink the Kool-Aid as soon as you start getting into the wedding planning and the wedding shopping. Like for sure.
Yeah.
And that especially happens with the wedding dress. Like your girlfriends are there, your mum's there, or whoever, and they're just like so excited. Maybe mum's crying. You know, like, it's so easy to get swept up, and at some point when you're spending that kind of money anyway, like an extra grand here or there becomes very easy to justify. So I actually don't speak to a lot of our brides like years down the line, but I would love to know.
Yeah.
That was something that they regretted. But we have something where we actually help our brides resell their wedding dresses.
Yes, I wanted to ask this because obviously there is so much in the, choosing the dress and all of that excitement and getting swept up in the run up to the wedding. But it does seem like at the Fall Bride, you're placing a lot of focus on what happens to the dress after the wedding.
Yeah.
What made you kind of get into, what made you launch a recycling
A couple of things.
service?
When I started the Fall Bride, I'd never set foot in a wedding dress shop because First of all, I never thought I'd be working in the wedding industry at all. And second of all, when I realized that it was something I wanted to do, I actually wanted to do everything my way, as in the way that I would want to shop.
Yeah.
And I didn't bother doing any comp shops because I was like, well, I'm not trying to create the same thing as anyone else that already exists.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna do this however I see fit. And there's so much talk about sustainability, like sustainable brands, especially in the wedding industry, like sustainable this, that, the other, fabrics, ethical production, etc. Totally true. But actually, when you look at it, wedding dresses are a one-use product.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Maximum 3.
Probably not going to wear the same when they get remarried. It might be a bit weird.
I have to say, I love that Millie McIntosh, when she got divorced from Professor Green, she then wore that wedding dress on Halloween.
Brilliant.
I think I'd definitely do that. Yeah. Or
Queen
I'd wear
of
it for like a divorce
sustainability.
party, maybe.
Yeah.
Like just getting drunk with my friends in my wedding dress. Yeah, so it's basically a one-use product. And if you have a dress that's made from natural fibers, so silk, lace, that all ages really badly.
Really?
Yeah, like silk yellows with age.
Yeah, of
lace
course.
yellows with age. There's a big uptake in vintage wedding dress shopping, but it's very, very hard to preserve the condition of these dresses. So it was always something that I thought about doing. You know, customers had asked about rental, and actually rental is very, very, very challenging for wedding dresses because it can't be a long dress because you can't do any alterations to it. You can't do any tailoring to get it to fit you and your height properly. And also, yeah, like I said, like natural fibers, it's just gonna degrade like with time.
Also, is rental that sustainable? Because I've seen a few questions about this because you have to do a lot of dry cleaning.
Yeah, it has to be dry cleaned every single time. And we do have some dresses on rental with a rental partner. Like we just send the dresses to them and it's a managed service. But the amount of repairs, like and extra buttons that we're having to send them.
Yeah, because they get destroyed on the day, don't they?
Yeah, the dresses have to be retired. Like they're actually being retired much faster than we thought they would be. So yeah, I don't really know the answer, but yeah, they have dry cleaning on site. So unless it's like a completely eco-friendly dry cleaning, which not many dry cleaning places are,
No.
I don't know what the true cost of it is. But yeah, so I thought about that, and then I was like, you know, ideally, maybe at some point we'd have like a pre-loved or a pre-owned edit, and then the pandemic kicked in, and one of my brides got in touch, and she was like, look, hey, I've got this amazing dress that I bought from you. Our wedding's been postponed, and we're actually just going to do like a 6-person wedding in one of these breaks between lockdowns. Like we're just going to pop to the town hall. And she was like, I don't know what to do with this. Like it's brand new. I haven't worn it. Like I haven't even had alterations on it yet. And I was like, there's going to be quite a lot of our customers in this situation. So I was like, I'm just going to do it now. It's like scramble to figure out like how to do this, how to price it, how to account for it, contractual agreements. Yeah. So basically we launched like in the middle of a pandemic, this recycle service where they can sell pre-owned dresses. And it's, I would say like a good third of them have never been worn.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like a mix of obviously the dress has been worn for the day.
Yeah.
Maybe it's got a little trashed on the hem.
And what's the uptake been like? Are people
actually
interested in pre-loved wedding dresses? Because
Yeah.
I feel that that's what I would do.
Yeah. So I, at first, I mean, again, like going in blind, I was like, I have no idea. It might just be like a nice marketing thing
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
people want to talk about, but no one ever actually buys anything. But actually, it's been super, super popular, and it's actually surprised me how popular it's been. And we have like, you know, we have the customers that come in and are like, I really love this idea. I don't agree with having something made for like one where I would love to really buy something from your pre-owned selection. And then we have other brides that are like, I love this dress that's out of my budget. Can I be put on a waiting list if it comes in for the pre-owned edit? Because it's obviously going to have some money knocked off the price. And then we have other customers where like they're kind of just super open-minded about what they want at all, and maybe they end up loving something from the pre-owned edit. So it's quite a nice mix of people that are shopping the edit.
Yeah, I mean, it's mad because I feel like 5-10 years ago, the idea of buying a pre-loved wedding dress was just not really a done thing. It was not very in or like even thought about. It was a bit like, oh no, why would I do that? But it seems like there's really been this 360 turnaround. And why do you think it is, from speaking to the brides?
I think it's definitely come down from like the fashion industry. I think if the fashion industry consumption hadn't changed and there hadn't been movements there, then it wouldn't have filtered over into weddings. I think it's more of a consumer mindset than a wedding shopping mindset.
Yeah.
So I think it's really credit to the rental platforms.
Yeah.
Like if you told me when I was in my like early 20s that I'd be like renting clothes from other people, like, oh, it's a bit gross.
Yeah, it's true.
It's a bit gross. Or like buying secondhand clothes. Like, I don't know. I think coming out of the whole very consumerist like 90s and noughties, you just wouldn't have thought that would be a thing.
No.
But yeah, I think it's been a mix of environmentalists and the campaign around the awareness of how unsustainable fashion is one of the most polluting industries, and then all of that awareness just leading to core changes in the way that people realise the value of things and also realise how many times you can reuse things and actually make it worth it.
Yeah. You mentioned that you went into the bridal wedding industry kind of blind almost, without ever thinking that you would go into that industry, having been in fashion previously. What was it about weddings or the bridal industry that actually led you there in the first place and made you think, actually, I'm going to give this a go?
So I worked in the fashion industry for about 10 years before I started even thinking about this idea. And I can chat shit about it because the company shut down now. I was in a dead-end job where it was like the weirdest job I've ever had. They hired me and they were like, it was like a PR and events agency, and they were like, we want to start this like digital marketing arm. And my specialism throughout my career was marketing and digital marketing.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool. And I came into the job and my line manager that had hired me in was like leaving that week and I hadn't been told. And they handed me a couple of clients and $1 million was missing from one of the clients' budgets, and no one could tell me where it had gone or account for it. And like one of the directors in the business was like, oh yeah, I think like New York spent it on rent or something. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? So I was just like, oh my God, I need to get out. Like something is really wrong here. So I quit within my notice period. But the one thing I took away from that job was the two girls I sat next to in the office were both engaged. And because there was no work for anyone to do, all we did was just like
talk about weddings,
do research for weddings. So they were looking for wedding dresses because obviously all we cared about was the dress. And I just realised that everything was like hyper traditional. Like I actually couldn't believe how traditional the industry still was and even still is now.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't understand. I was like, but people like me do get married,
Yeah.
So at that time I would have been resigned to maybe like ordering a nice white dress off of like Net-a-Porter or something.
Yeah.
Having to try it on in my bedroom.
Yeah.
Keeping my fiance out like, don't fucking come in.
Yeah.
Like, that's not an experience.
No.
That's not an experience, basically. And I was like, okay, even if I'm not really a wedding-y person, there's definitely a space here for like, I don't know. I was like, I just want a wedding dress shop for like the people that shop at Cars and Arquette, like where is that? I was like, where is that? I was like, it doesn't exist. So that seeded the idea that I thought about for like a year. And then it didn't happen by accident, but happened by surprise because I had some life savings, but not near enough to start a business that requires this kind of expensive stock to be bought in or physical premises, because this is not something you can do online.
No.
It's very, very unlikely that it will work online. And I didn't have the benefit of having parents that would just throw money at an idea, a concept. I think my mum actually told me it was the worst idea she'd ever heard.
Wow.
She apologised to me for it this year though, and she's like, your parents.
Love that.
But she basically, the reason she said that was she's very anti-risk, and my parents have always been very anti-risk, especially when it comes to financial things.
That's so interesting.
Very anti-risk. And she was like, this is a terrible idea. I'd rather you buy a house.
Wow,
Basically,
that's so
like,
interesting.
You should use your money and buy a property.
That doesn't surprise me that much, because I feel like actually a lot of our parents' generation, that is their attitude.
But I also think their generation is the generation when you could buy a house and it would actually reap returns.
Yes.
Whereas now, I can scrape by and buy like a £500,000 studio in London, and it's sure as shit not going to be worth double in like a decade.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way.
Yeah, for sure.
The market's maxed out.
I think you're right. Like, it is characteristic of our parents' generation to be much more anti-risk. And you're also right. Like, they are so stuck on get on the property ladder as soon as you can. And I don't think they actually have an understanding of what it's like making that first property purchase in today's world that we are living in. But what I think is really interesting is the fact that they were very risk averse. And it sounds like you kind of went into a job that you thought was going to be your career. It wasn't. You kind of stumbled upon, oh, there's a gap in the market for wedding dresses. And then you go to your mum and she says, this is the worst idea ever. And then you just do it. Like, that's really incredible.
I surprised myself.
Yeah, I'm amazed.
I surprised myself, but it was a crazy risk. Like, I would never advise anyone to take this risk because it was a risk on my personal finances. Like, it was all of my savings. I maxed out every credit card that I could take out. Like, this is a massive risk. That happened only after the thing that kicked me over the edge, which was I needed money. I couldn't get it from any source that I knew.
Yeah.
And I applied to a high street bank that I personally bank with for something called a startup loan. I was like, oh my God, perfect. Up to £25,000. I was like, I'm a startup. This is great. I got through to speak to a guy after I'd filled in the application. He was like, no, you've got to be trading already. And I was like, but it's called a startup loan. I need to start and I need money to start. And he was like, no, you've got to be trading already. And he was like, and I was just like, but then you should call it a small business loan.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I've been missold startup loans.
I think you've been missold. I mean, why are they called that?
Because I basically was like, I won't entertain this idea any longer if I can't figure out how to fund it.
Yeah.
But thank God for that guy on customer service on HSBC, because he was like, do you know what? I can see you're in the Tower Hamlets area. They actually have an amazing enterprise scheme as part of the local council, because it's generally like quite poor council or like poor area. They have put a lot of money into funding like smaller businesses, and I went through this enterprise scheme, and you get given kind of like a little business consultant, and these are all professionals who just take time to do this like free advice. And this woman helped me put together a business plan and put together like a P&L for the first year, like just pulling numbers out my arse, because you have no idea how it's going to perform before you actually start trading. And then she was like, look, you're going to go through a couple of rounds with this. It basically goes in front of like a panel. They've got this pot of money sitting there that's funded like by a big bank that we partner with. And it's basically like a loan, and you can get up to £25,000. But she was like, hardly anyone ever gets that amount of money, because obviously they want success stories.
Yeah.
The more money they give around to more different companies, the more likely they are to have success stories. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, I actually can't take less than £25,000. If I don't get it, I don't get it. That's it. I know I tried everything. I'll put the idea to bed, and I'll cry for the next couple of decades. But I got it. And then they put the money in my bank account like within 48 hours.
Wow.
And I was like, crap.
Now I have to do it.
I have to do this now. They've given me the money. I have to do this. I just have to do this. And then I was like scrambling. And I was like, oh my God.
So I imagine your first thing was like, right, find a premises to rent,
premises
like buy some stock.
Yeah.
And did you hire anyone straight away, or did you just do everything?
No, I only hired my first employee like summer of 2021.
That is honestly like, this is crazy. What was the thing that made you, because like you say, it was a massive personal risk. It's not like you come from a background like a family who are like big risk takers. What was motivating you to do this? Was it just the conviction that like there was a big gap in the market and this was going to work?
Yeah, I didn't have any design skills, so I knew I couldn't create my own line. So then I was like, do designers even exist that I want to carry, that I would wear, or that different versions of me would wear? And I realized that there were, but they just didn't have a store in London or even in the UK at all. But I could see that they were popular in their own countries. And I was like, right, so customers obviously want them. People are obviously buying their product. There's just not a retail outlet for them here. And I told like a couple of my closest friends, because when you have like a business idea, you're so protective of it. You're like, God, what if someone else starts the same thing at the same time or whatever? And they were like, no, this is amazing. This could work. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to do it and compartmentalize all of the anxiety I have over the money side of it.
Wow.
Like, I'm just going to ignore how much that stresses me out, and like the fact that like all my credit cards are maxed out, because I'm so convinced that this can work that I think I'll be able to pay that back off pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And then I opened the first iteration of the fall, which was in a showroom in Hackney Wick, and the pandemic started 6 weeks later.
Oh my gosh. What did you do?
I was in shock, and I was just like,
oh my God.
What have I done? Like, what have I done? Like, what is this going to look like for me personally? Like, my personal finances are riding on this.
Yeah.
And the thing that saved me and saved the business was because I'd gone into the industry like blind, or like I'd obviously done research, but I was like, I'm going to do this my way. I never realized before I started researching how long it can take to get a wedding dress made. And I was like, I didn't know that. And I was like, what if I didn't know that and I've decided I'm getting married in 6 months?
Yeah.
And I was like, surely like we need some like ready to wear. So I carried ready to wear from the very beginning. And every time there was a break between lockdowns and there were 6 people weddings, ready to wear. And the ready to wear kept the business. Yeah, kept the business afloat. And we were like the only, apart from online stores, we were the only like bridal store that people could come and get ready to wear from in those breaks, because everywhere else had lead times.
Yeah.
And it was like the saving. I'd like to say it was like a proper business strategy, as in like I predicted the pandemic and knew that it was going to happen. But some kind of strategy and some kind of luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a phenomenal story. Like, that's amazing. Well done to you.
So you're 2.5 years in.
Almost 3.
Almost 3
My
years.
Business anniversary in January.
Wow.
Opened on like January the 8th, 2020.
And what does it look like now? Has it turned out how you imagined it would be?
So when I had to do projections for this business pitch, I pulled numbers out my ass.
Yeah.
And I said to my business advisor that was helping me, I was like, how do you even...
Yeah.
Like, I was like, why are they even going to believe these numbers that I'm putting on the spreadsheet? Because I'm just making stuff up.
I'm with you. I don't get it. What was the response?
Why would they just give me money out of like numbers that I made up? And she was kind of like, it's more there to see your ambition, because the business plan and the idea and the concept, that's what's going to make them give you money. These numbers are just something for you to keep track of. Like, hit those targets and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
I don't think I've actively had any like tangible figures in terms of like financial goals for the business for the past 3 years, because we've been operating like in like life-saving mode the whole time. Like, it was pandemic, now it's cost of living crisis. You know, like 1 month the energy bill for the store is like £1,000.
Yeah.
Another month it's 400. Like, I don't know, I can't even manage the costs. So the whole time I feel like I'm running to keep up with the business. You know, I'm having to hire staff because we can't get enough customers in, because we're not open enough, because it's just constant. And I feel like I'm always like just floating, keeping my head up.
Yeah.
But I know there are so many ways it could be worse right now. So it's definitely not a complaint, but it's surpassed all of my expectations, and even without throwing in a pandemic and a cost of living crisis. So we're like very strongly into the 6-figure turnover, and I plan to make that 7 next year. So it's it's doing really well, but I don't think I've had a break to like realise. Probably go and have a cry outside after we finish recording this.
I hope this has been like therapy. I really do hope this has been cathartic. But before we let you go, I have to ask you, particularly because you've just mentioned the cost of living crisis, and of course, everyone's budgets are squeezed. And as you say, people don't want to, brides do not want to skimp on the cost of the dress, but ultimately, as budgets are squeezed, the time we're finding ourselves in now, that are going to be more brides on a budget. And particularly for those brides, what do you think are kind of the key things to nail when you're thinking about the dress? Because there's so many elements like the fabric and the cut.
Totally.
What do you think are the key kind of things to get right?
Well, I mean, and this is kind of a recommendation that I would have regardless of the cost of living crisis. I do think it's so easy to get swept up in the whole weddingness of it all and the emotions. But it is possible to find an amazing dress at every price point. Like you don't need to break the bank.
Yeah.
And actually where we see people struggling is because they have decided not to stick to their budget. Because, there's a dress that they've seen and they just fall in love with it online. And we're like, okay, but that's a bit outside your budget. And they're like, oh my God, but I'll just try it on just for the shape. And I'm like, don't do it. Just for the shape that's not going to help you, because you're not going to be able to find another dress that is exactly that dress. And there's so many elements that go into balancing the design of a dress. Like you can take the same neckline and the same idea of a sleeve and it's going to fit totally differently by another designer in a different fabric, a different skirt shape or whatever it is. So I think the most important thing is just don't try on stuff that's outside your budget. Stick to your budget. There's always going to be like different silhouettes and shapes within your budget. Like, that's just design. There is an element of fabric that goes into it. I would say like the biggest variables and the things that differentiate like the pricing of our gowns, for example, between like ready to wear and like made to order is made to order is made one by one. Like it's made for you. Whereas ready to wear, it gets put into a bigger order with like all of the other stockists and we have to like pre-order way in advance, and then the factory for that designer will cut all of those dresses at the same time. So that's where they manage to get like cost prices down, because they get a bit of, a bulk discount and things like that. Fabrics do have an effect. I think it's more the quality of the fabric, because I think there's a little bit of a misconception that, oh my God, it has to be silk if it's an expensive wedding dress, but actually not really. Like you can have synthetic fibers that are exceptional quality and actually they allow a more structured fit or a more flattering shape. And you can get silk and synthetic fabrics at many different price points, and it's more the quality of it, the quality of it and the weight of it and where it's being produced and how it's being produced. And that's all for my team to help you figure out, right? Like, because a lot of what we're doing the whole time is not only styling you, but we're like talking you through like the fabrics and the designers and where they're made, and all of our designers produce locally to them. So it's a lot more expensive to produce in New York than in, Perth in Australia. Obviously, like there's going to be cost differences everywhere. So we can always like help educate you through the process. But I think the most important thing is to like stick to
your budget.
Stick to your budget.
Yeah.
It's going to make your life so much easier. Yeah. There's nothing more stressful than realising something is out of budget that you've already fallen in love with, and then figuring out how the hell you're going to afford it.
Yeah. And then feeling like whatever you pick is just not going to stack up.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for coming. It's been such an interesting insight into the whole business and your incredible journey that you've been on. For anyone that wants to find out more about Full Bride, where can we go?
You can follow us on Instagram at The Full Bride and visit us online at www.thefullbride.com.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh my God, that was absolutely incredible.